Lord of the Mysteries. Chapter 1070. Maybe it's real. Liveseed was a floating city that the dragon of imagination Ankwelt imagined, out of thin air. No matter what, it was a miracle, a divine miracle. It was even more magnificent than the giant king's court, more rugged and unique. Every stone pillar was nearly 100 meters tall, like a throne for the dragon to rest on. It was a city that left a deep, unforgettable impression just from hearing about it. Therefore, although Audrey had never actually seen the City of Miracles, she instantly made connections from witnessing the scene. Of course, one of the main reasons for knowing that was because she knew that Grozel's travels came from the Dragon of Imagination, Ankwelt. As for Klein, as he had once divined the origins of Grozel's travels and had seen the real City of Miracles, the floating city, and now, he was sure that the island-sized city in the middle of the deep-sea crater was identical to Liveseed. All it lacked were the dragons that flew in every direction. Is this real, or is it a clone? Or is it a gathering of some special creature's subconscious in the book world? Klein was slightly surprised as he quickly analyzed the situation. According to his divination results and the contents of the dream from giant guardian Grozel and elven songster Ciadas, he was certain that, when Grozel's travels was created, the City of Miracles Liveseed still existed. When it reached the giant king's court, the City of Miracles Liveseed still existed. When Grozel began his adventure, and when Ciadas was sucked into the book world, Liveseed still existed. If the City of Miracles Liveseed were to vanish, the various supernatural races wouldn't have any reaction. In other words, these facts were undeniable proof that the city in the middle of the deep-sea crater was unlikely to be Liveseed. But very quickly, Klein remembered something. That was the answer that Erodes had once given him. Certain that it first appeared among the dragons, after the disappearance of the City of Miracles, Liveseed. This is interesting. What did the magic mirror rely on to confirm that Grozel's travels was the first to appear and to believe that it was after the disappearance of the City of Miracles Liveseed? It wasn't even able to see matters related to Zeradol, so how could it pry into the origins of an ancient god's possession? I originally used this conclusion to infer and consider things, but this point was completely overturned by my divination. I never expected. Klein observed the tall stone columns and magnificent city as many thoughts ran through his mind. Suddenly, he grasped onto an idea. The last owner of Grozel's travel was Vice Admiral Iceberg Edwina, a member of the Church of Knowledge. They believe in the God of Knowledge and Wisdom. The God of Knowledge and Wisdom can almost be confirmed to be one of the kings of angels who served the ancient sun god, the Angel of Wisdom. And from the Church's history and the history of the Third Epoch, it's reasonable to suspect that the Angel of Wisdom is most likely the Dragon of Wisdom, Harabergen. This was the Dragon of Imagination Ankwelt's subsidiary god, a high-level member of the dragons. The appearance of Grozel's travels after the disappearance of the City of Miracles was thanks to the God of Knowledge and Wisdom passing it around through a certain method, which had convinced the magic mirror? If he really is a Dragon of Wisdom, it means that he was directly involved, and his level was already very high back then. His understanding of this matter definitely trumps the Grozel and Ciadas. But how do I explain the scene I divined above the gray fog? Just recalling it now makes my head ache. What I saw was definitely the ancient god, Dragon of Imagination, himself. Klein cheered up when he managed to string up all these matters together, but he also fell into a state of puzzlement. He tossed the gold coin continuously, and quickly came up with some theories. Since the City of Miracles, Liveseed, was imagined, couldn't it just be imagined again? After it disappeared? The original Liveseed was stuffed into the book by the Dragon King Ankwelt. Then, the one that subsequently existed was one he imagined again? This could fool all the dragons, but not the one that was known for being intelligent. If this were true, then there were actually two instances of the City of Miracles, Liveseed. The one here is the oldest one. But here comes the question. Why didn't the Dragon of Wisdom enter the book, himself? Even if he wasn't a spectator, with his title of being omniscient and omnipotent, he should have enough powers to perform a deeper exploration. He has actually been here a long time ago, but didn't alert any living beings in the book. Also, because of certain motives, he left this city of miracles here? As thoughts surfaced in Klein's mind, the star Leonard, who had both hands in his pockets, looked at him and then at Miss Justice, who had also been looking down in silence for a long time. He took the initiative to speak and break the silence. This city is grand and magnificent. It clearly doesn't belong to humans or humanoid creatures, but there's no need to stare at it for so long. You're not an architect after all. Klein gathered his thoughts and glanced at Leonard. This might very well be Dragon of Imagination Ankwelt's City of Miracles, Liveseed. In a sense, it's the divine kingdom of an ancient god. Of course, if there was really another Liveseed, the nature of the divine kingdom here didn't hold much importance. Divine kingdom. Leonard's pupils dilated as he repeated the keyword. Audrey regained her senses and whispered, "Is it really Liveseed?" "It's only possible." Klein had already calmed down and replied simply, "It's not floating in the air like the legends, but has sunken to the bottom of the sea of collective subconscious, so it's hard to tell if it's real or fake." At this moment, Leonard finally managed to control himself. He looked at the magnificent city in the deep-sea crater again and smiled self-deprecatingly. "I didn't expect the day when I'll come to the divine kingdom of an ancient god." Frankly, if Miss Justice wasn't here, he wouldn't have been able to help but marvel at how rich Klein's life was. Ever since he reunited with his former teammate, not only did he meet the two sons of God, kings of angels, he had also entered the mysterious book world and found a city suspected to be a divine kingdom. This was many times more interesting than what he had experienced in the past year. The level of such matters was many times higher. Of course, it was a lot more dangerous. Having said that, he looked up at the floating, seawater phantoms, and asked thoughtfully, "How do you know if the sea of collective subconscious is real or if it's imagined?" This was a continuation of the problem of determining Liveseed's authenticity. Audrey thought for a while and said with uncertainty, "There's no way to tell the difference, or rather, the sea of collective subconscious here is also real. In essence, collective subconscious is the accumulation and settling of strong emotions and feelings. Although the people in this world may be imaginary, their experiences, feelings, joy, anger, sadness, pain, and happiness, they all truly happened before." As she spoke, Audrey stopped as she vaguely realized something, but she was unable to say it out loud. At this moment, Klein suddenly said, "The objects that he can imagine will be conjured. The kingdom he dreams of will surely descend upon the physical world." As his voice echoed, Klein put away the gold coin in his hand and jumped into the deep-sea crater, his black trench coat flaring up as a result. "The future that he declares will definitely be carried out, becoming reality." As his figure glided down, the following words came out. Audrey's green eyes were dazed at first before they lit up. Then she jumped towards the City of Miracles. "Aren't you going to divine the level of danger? This might be the divine kingdom of an ancient god." Leonard looked at the two of them in surprise and blurted out, "In the education he received, this wasn't in line with the standard operating procedures. When did you get the wrong impression that I didn't divine it? You just didn't notice my tiny actions. I just put away the gold coin. Also, I didn't get any warnings from my intuition for danger. Furthermore, if my theory is right, then the Dragon of Wisdom Harabergen should have entered this place before. If there's any form of danger that will rear its head, it would have long been finished off by him. If Miss Justice wasn't here, I'd really wish to berate you." As Klein silently lampooned, he adjusted his direction and speed, passing through a few thick stone columns that stood nearly 100 meters tall. He descended one level after another before stepping onto the grayish-white ground. He was in a spirit-body state now, and could fly if he wanted to. About 2 to 3 seconds later, the silver-masked Justice Audrey landed beside him. Audrey looked up, and after reeling from a few seconds of shock due to the grandeur of the stone columns and palace, she said, "Looking from the inside and looking from a distance feels completely different. Perhaps this is how a rat truly feels in Backland." As she spoke, Leonard also glided over and looked sideways at Klein. It wasn't that he didn't believe in Klein, nor was he unaware of how cautious he was. He just needed to clarify such matters in a joint operation, because there was the possibility of teammates being unknowingly corrupted, turning reckless. This was a conclusion the Nighthawks gleaned from their experience of repeated sacrifices. Currently, the indications don't point to much danger, Klein said truthfully. Leonard no longer looked around and said, "The City of Miracles is really big. I mean that, for such a big city, even if we can fly, we won't be able to completely explore it without spending a few days here. Or perhaps, do you have a destination in mind?" The second half of his sentence was said while looking at Klein. Klein nodded and pointed to a huge palace that was more than 200 meters tall. "There. If I remember correctly, that is the Dragon of Imagination Ankwelt's residence." This was what he saw in the dream divination. Seeing that Klein already had a plan, as if he had received Mr. Fool's guidance, Leonard felt relieved. He looked at the grayish-white foundation on his feet and said, "Is this a divine kingdom? I don't feel anything." At this moment, Audrey, who was observing the surroundings carefully, said with uncertainty, "All the abnormalities here seem to be gathering towards that palace." She was referring to the place that Klein had pointed out to be the ancient god's residence.